afternoon and good evening for another very special edition of Diary of a Double. This is the year-long journey of Antonio Argüelles from Mexico City to swim from England to France and then back from France to England. 67 kilometers in cold, non-shark infested waters. Antonio, welcome.
Buenos días, buenas tardes, buenas noches. And today I'm in San Francisco, Stephen, enjoying Aquatic Park.
Yes.
A hell of a training. Just imagine coming from, I thought La Jolla was cold the last day, 16.4 degrees, and I found San Francisco at 12.5.
Oh.
So yeah, a big difference. So yesterday it was I spent from Monday till Thursday swimming in La Jolla. Dan Simonelli was there. He recorded one of the sessions, and that we put it on Instagram. And it was again, 4 days with winds and especially wind. I mean, it was one day that was really windy. But another interesting thing is on Monday it was almost 19 degrees Celsius, the water.
Yeah.
Okay, and on Thursday it was 16.4. And I got to San Francisco Thursday afternoon and went swimming yesterday and today. And I would say that the big difference you immediately notice between coming from La Jolla to San Francisco is there's no waves. Getting in and out of the water is without waves, which is totally strange. And yesterday and today there was no wind. The water was hyper flat. It was cold, and this morning I went out and Rafa wanted me to do, the nice thing about San Francisco, which is not, you don't find in La Jolla, is that the currents are really strong once you get outside Aquatic Park. And today there was a big, how you call it, Quinn, when the water is afloat, when the water is coming in?
Flood.
Flood. No, so today we had a flood. So I had to go 10 to 15 minutes against and then coming back. But the coming back was about 3.5 minutes. So you can imagine how hard going against it was.
Yeah.
So it was a lot of fun.
Who was your kayaker? Who was with you?
No, I was by myself. I just
by
went
yourself.
outside. Yeah, just outside, close to the wall.
Got it.
A lot of fishermen. I guess there's you can go fishing now for some fish. I can't remember which fish it is. But there are a lot of fishermen there. Albacore, I think it's albacore that you go fishing. No, I just stay. I take a kayak with Miguel when we go to the Golden Gate or when we go to the Bay Bridge. But when I'm swimming along, I like to swim along the Aquatic Park.
Okay. When you swim, do you check the tide charts? Do you know what's going on, or you just go out there and chance it?
No, you have Aquatic Park and you go out.
Yeah.
So you go out and you just see which way the current is taking you, and then you know which way to go. No, I'm not very technical, I have to admit. I asked Dan if we could what was going to be in San Francisco, but this morning I just went out and felt which way the current was going.
Yeah. Well, today's session is about Aquatic Park and San Francisco Bay, which I've always found to be quite challenging. I'm just a very, very occasional visitor, and I don't understand the ebb and flow, the tides, the currents, the situation in Aquatic Park. And Tony, you've been there many times, but as you state, you're non-technical. So can you describe for everybody what Aquatic Park is and why it's a great training ground for something like the English Channel? And then we'll ask Susan to give us all the technical information about the San Francisco Bay.
Well,
go ahead.
There for the first time. If you come there for the first time, you have two clubs: the Dolphin Club, which are blue, and the good ones were the Red Club, which is South End Rowing Club. And in the old days when I first started coming to San Francisco, and had the sign can only come after 12, up to 10 o'clock. Okay, so just imagine telling all the people who work was going to be at 10 because that was the day I could go in. So then I discovered that people would come in early in the morning and that I just could sneak in and pay my $10 club, and that's how I started going there. And one day, Dominic, who is also an important thing is that during the day, the ages of the crowd start changing. So the very early, we all come, the old fellows come in, which I count myself with the old fellows. So Dominic was this guy who apparently had an amazing athletic career, and he covered that anybody can be a member, at least from the South End Rowing Club, which is really interesting because it's not one of those exclusive clubs that you have to go through a process. So that makes it a very friendly place. And then I got to meet people, like Kim and Simon and all the friends there. And my first swim was my introduction. So we go out, you have a park and there's a beach that we join the beach with the dolphins. Then you go out and there's a big boat on your right, okay? Can't remember the name of the boat. So you go like a wall. So you can go inside the wall or you can go outside the wall. So the first time I went inside the wall, you finish and ebbing, which is the currents going towards the Golden Gate Bridge. It's really interesting because once you get out there, you turn left and then you hit the current on. Really nice because you can on hard days you can go really, really fast. And then that day we went to all the way to Fort Mason, and then which is usually a nice trip. And then there I learned about it because I had to swim back from Fort Mason. You swim from Fort Mason to the wall, and then you enter again and you go around the wall. So the stayed inside Aquatic Park, it's a very straight, easy swim. Once you get out, you have to be knowledgeable about which way the currents are because they can be very strong. I mean, you can take some time to get back into Aquatic Park. I always feel safe inside and out. There's a lot of camaraderie, a lot of people. One thing that I noticed now, Stephen, is that before the pandemic, nobody used buoys. I was one of the few people with buoy. I mean, that's how people started identifying me. And today, there's so many buoys. I guess people want to take their cell phones or the keys, but there's a lot of buoys in the bay now in Aquatic Park. So that's basically my and we have a great sauna at the Southern Rowing Club. You can drink properly there, no restrictions.
Yeah. So when you say the buoys, you mean the tow floats, the orange?
The tow float. Yeah, the orange, the tow float. I saw a pink one today. I want to get a pink one.
Got it. And when I'm at Aquatic Park, it appears to me that Alcatraz Island is slightly to my right. Is that just an optical illusion, or is it depending on where you stand? Do you know? And I'm standing on the shore of Aquatic Park, and I look out, and on my left is the Golden Gate Bridge, and it appears to my right is Alcatraz. Is that accurate, or is it straight out from Aquatic Park?
I've only swum Alcatraz once. We had the WOWSA awards, and it looked to me that it was a little bit to the right from the beach, but maybe Suzanne or Quinn, who have been there longer.
Suzanne, how far is it from the shore of Aquatic Park?
Well, and Kathy Harrington also is quite a paddler and has been out there. It's about 1 1/4 straight shot.
Okay, and it's straight out.
Pretty much, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
But you seldom go straight to shore because there's usually, you've got the ebb, the exiting water, and the flood, the filling water. You try to find the slack water where there's nothing pushing you or pulling you either way, but that rarely happens.
And is that slack water, does that happen only momentarily, or is it like an hour of the day, or is it longer?
Ooh, you're asking me more tide questions. So there is a period of a couple hours, according to a tide book, which sometimes isn't always right. Let me put myself on here. Sometimes the tide book's not always right, then you never know. But I think Kathy, if you can unmute yourself, because Kathy also is a kayaker as well, and has done quite a bit of kayaking and swimming, long distance swimming herself. So usually there's a period of time, maybe 1 hour, that you could have slack, but it really never settles down. There's always some water going out and some water coming in. I mean, when you think about it, the Golden Gate in that picture in back is so great, Antonio, is only 7/8 of a mile wide, right? So you've got 7/8 of a mile wide, water coming in and going out, filling up, what, 322 square miles. So yeah, it's rare. You just have to plan it correctly so that the tides are not too big, not too strong, not too high, not too low, and then try to find the minimal tide difference so that that slack water will hopefully be there a little bit more. It won't be as much intensity.
And the depth of San Francisco Bay, is it uneven or is it fairly flat underneath you?
Well, okay, I mentioned at the anchorages, that's like 276 or 325 feet deep. So it's like a valley in there. And I kind of tease people. I said, oh yeah, there's nets up there. It'll catch all the sharks and everything, but no. So it's very, very deep there. And then actually the average depth of the bay is quite shallow, but we have the shipping channel because, there's a lot of boat traffic, big freighters coming in. And so it's got to be at least 45 feet deep for them. But the average deep is fairly shallow in and of itself. But then you have all these land masses. You have Alcatraz, you have Angel Island, and you've got another body of land that sticks out, Treasure Island, out there, down there at the Bay Bridge. And so what happens is the water hits those spots and it creates back eddies, it creates very strange currents. And it's a lot of fun to try and figure out. That's what I like, it's you never know what you're going to get. It's kind of exciting about, swimming in San Francisco Bay.
Yeah. And then the water temperature throughout the year, is there any consistency in the water temperature from January to December?
Well, water temperature, global warming. I can't tell you, I don't really remember when it's been under 50 degrees as of late. So, I mean, I remember swimming back 40 years ago, it was 46 and 47 degrees. I don't know what that is in centigrade. I'm sure somebody can do a quick math there. I know that right now it really, January 50 degrees, and it's really been kind of a long, cold winter. It finally warmed up to, I think now 54 degrees, 53, but it depends whether you're on an ebb or a flood, because right now the snow is beginning to melt. And if you're swimming on an ebb, that cold water, the snow melt is going to be coming down. So it's a little bit colder. Also, when you enter Aquatic Park, Antonio, and when you first get in, it's way colder in the beginning. And then when you swim out, it gets a little bit warmer because it's been so windy. Today was a good day, but it's been really windy and it stirs up the water. And then it can get up to about 62 degrees. So that's kind of the range.
Yeah, I remember Quinn, being a Yale graduate, you can correct me here. Was it Mark Twain that said the coldest he's ever felt was San Francisco in summer?
I have no idea what that has to do with my alma mater, but yes, it was Mark Twain.
Okay, well read.
You're well read. That's what we were trying to say, Quinn. That it's no Berkeley stuff. So that's good.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Does the water warm up to 62 in the summer, or it doesn't matter?
The wind, that's what, you know, when Antonio was talking about his swimming in La Jolla, the air temperature is far warmer. And so when the wind chills, you don't get quite as chilled. But it seems like in San Francisco, boy, if it's 52-degree air temperature and that wind is blowing, it's tough. You know, it's tough to get dressed on the bleachers. You just kind of have to suck it up, buttercup, you know, and just put those clothes on and, you know, try to get warm as best that you can. But yeah, the summer it blows. They call it fog. Carl the Fog comes in.
Got it. And Aquatic Park, it's this semicircular area. Antonio, is there a certain pattern that people do? Do they go in clockwise, counterclockwise, or do people just swim all over the place? I think he's frozen.
Yeah, he froze.
And the Dolphin and South End Rowing Club. So you go all the way to the buoy and come back. And that can take you about between 12 and 15 minutes. And then the other way is just go straight to the opening. And when you're in a group, that usually it's what happens. You go straight to the opening, and then you go either way. I like to go to the buoy. Well, now that I'm getting in the bleachers, you know, that just comes from my German heritage. I just go to the bleachers and I have to go to the buoy and go back to the club, then go back to the buoy and then go around. That takes me about, today it took me about 20 minutes to do that. And that's a good warm up. And this is something that I want to say, Stephen, that remember a couple of weeks ago, I was telling that I had a lot of problems getting my rhythm, that Dan Simonelli had noticed how I started very slow and I couldn't get my rhythm very fast. So we changed our warm up. And now I go out really fast. For the first 10 minutes, I go really fast for 100 meters, recover really fast for 100 meters for 10 minutes. Then I go blast R5 for 15 strokes, then 30 recover for another 10 minutes. And then I can go into my R3 pace. And yesterday and today, being in such cold water, it was about 55. It really worked. It really worked. And it was really interesting when I was coming back from going against the current and coming back, I was drinking water. And so the current was so hard that it was moving me without me doing anything while I was drinking. And just stopping for 2 minutes, I got so cold. It's amazing how fast your body gets cold if you're not moving in the water. So I had to do 4 of those. I only did 3, and then I went all the way to Fort Mason, and I said, "Forget it, Rafa. I'm just gonna go all the way. It's too cold." And I was coming fast back again because it makes a big difference moving fast in the water or not moving fast.
Yeah. And Suzanne, looking at Suzanne and Kathy, if we look at the, I just like to repeat what we said earlier. If we look at Antonio's back screen, you can see the different textures in the water. And can you explain why the water appears differently in different parts of San Francisco Bay?
Well, as you looking at the picture, you also notice the different colors. Yeah. And that also, so first the colors, a lot of times the dark and the light can be water coming down from the delta, which is dirt, silt, not contaminated, but literally dirty water, brackish water. And so sometimes you look at that water and you go, I know what the tide is doing. It's going out. Okay. So you can make a note of that. And the other thing is that also could be a tide line where the 2 tides are meeting and they're discussing which one is going to be stronger. You know, which one is going to be stronger, the one ebbing and exiting or the one flooding and filling up the bay. So there's a little bit of a tide line. And plus you have some interesting land over there on where Antonio's head is. So you can see in back of him, he's got the, you have a landmass. So again, the water's hitting up against there and making some back eddies as well. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Dan, as a kayaker down in La Jolla, but also frequently in Catalina and occasionally in other places, do you make note of all of these color changes and texture changes in the water when you're kayaking?
I haven't, not much. I just pay attention to what the tide's doing, and obviously the surface conditions. And like Suzanne's saying, with the eddy, especially Chrissy Field eddy. But the colors I haven't really, I know San Francisco fairly well. I mean, just studying it with the tides and paying attention to it for my own swimming and whatnot. And Kathy definitely has helped me with that over the years. And Suzanne's described it, well here. And if I could, I'd like to either now or later discuss the slack tide and the real similarities and the advantages of training between Aquatic Park in San Francisco and English Channel.
Yeah, well, go ahead. The floor is yours.
Okay. All right. Going back to the slack tide, it really does. I've learned, in San Francisco first, and then throughout with the English Channel trips, and understanding from the captains that I've worked with in English Channel that, it fluctuates every time. It fluctuates every day, the tides and particularly the slack tide. So it is somewhat of a guessing game. Obviously, in English Channel, they make their calculations, and for a double, it certainly adds to the complication and complexity of it. But the slack tides don't, there's predictions. The tides are just predictions. The predictions are fairly accurate usually. Maybe a little different in San Francisco. I'm not as familiar on a daily basis, certainly. But slack, I've experienced where the slacks are, it didn't really materialize, or there wasn't much of a slack, or certainly the length of time where you thought, where it was predicted the slack time. The slack tide is the changing of the tides between the switching of the tides. So during that period when the tide is changing, there's a slack period. Of course, it's going from high to low or low to high. And so there's a time at which, there's a shift that changes all the time. So you never really know what you're going to get at the time. And the captains, English Channel captains in this case, monitor that. They monitor the water flow on time, real time. And they're always monitoring how it's changing, maybe even by the minute. I mean, I know they're constantly monitoring it, especially during the slack, because they want to know exactly when that tide is going to change. And one of the factors in that is how quickly it can change. So obviously that will take into account how they monitor the swim and the pace of the swimmer. And with a double in particular, that becomes even more important, of course, because you have that whole other turnaround to do, to come back. And you want to be able to calculate that, for the return trip as best as possible. So that's a pretty big technical thing. And with the similarities of being able to do it with San Francisco and English Channel, it's huge. I mean, it really makes a big difference in terms of, being able to go and train in San Francisco and it being very similar to English Channel.
Yeah, interesting.
I would like to add something that Dan just said. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, I said one of my main goals is not to lose the tide. And I remember when I did my double, when I did when I was 50 years ago, when I finished the Triple Crown, I was 800 meters from 𝐀𝐧𝐿𝐿, 11 hours. And I just said, God, I mean, you can see it. The tide changed and it took me 1 hour and 52 minutes to finish that last part. So not losing the tide, it's very important, because you lose the tide and you're going to be gone. I mean, at least 2 hours more. So let's hope the day I swim the double, the moon is lazy, and it doesn't when the tide changes, I have a large period of time it's just be a slack. So we'll be.
He froze.
I have to tell my mother that she has to put a list of all the things she has to pray for.
Kathy, do you have anything to add? I know you have a lot of experience out there.
Yes.
Kathy is driving, she said.
Okay. No problem.
I text her. Yeah. So she's driving. She said it's very, she's listening.
Got it. I know in Japan, maybe Antonio, you don't realize this, but the Japanese pilots have a fish finder because they're all fishermen. They literally, the days that they're not escorting swimmers, they're out in the channel looking for fish. And I remember I'd never seen a fish finder myself before. And when I was looking at the Japanese pilot was looking at his GPS, and then he was looking at his fish finder, GPS and fish finder. And he was trying to see where the fish were going, because he figured the fish weren't going to be swimming against the current. They were going to be swimming with the current. So it was interesting to know that they had that additional bit of information. And I didn't know in the English channel if the escort pilots have fish finders, which are I guess it's a radar of some sort that looks for schools of fish that are swimming, underneath. Do you know?
No,
well,
I don't.
I guess this is a question for
Certainly makes sense.
Boat pilot.
Well, actually, I think Antonio referred to, or you did, they actually have like real time, these gadgets, widgets, and gadgets where they know what the current is doing right underneath you in real time, which we never had before.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, we use, and Antonio mentioned the moon, kind of jokingly, but actually if it's a full moon or if there's no moon, it does funny things with the water and it increases the tide, intensity of the tide. This is all that we learned. I mean, we had to learn about this before all the gadgets and gadgets and satellites. So, yeah.
It was interesting because we sometimes talk about assisted swims and non-assisted swims. And Suzanne, when you started, the assisted swim in those years was literally someone parked at the edge of the channel with their headlights on in the car. And that was our GPS in the 20th century. Whereas now we can know the tides and the direction exactly where we are. So sometimes I laugh to myself, is like we assumed all this, the GPS and all these gadgets and gadgets, they are considered not assist. But if compared to the swims when Susan, you started, that's some sort of assistance.
Yeah, well, yeah. And getting back to your fish finder, the other thing, Antonio, when I'm swimming in the cove, I try to swim not where or even outside the cove. I try not to swim where there are a lot of birds. You know how you see the birds kind of swooping on the water? I try to not swim there because to me that means food. And if the birds are looking for food, then that attracts our seals. So I try to, that was my other little thing of kind of staying away from wherever the birds are, so that I wouldn't be in, any, sometimes our seals are not as friendly as the ones in La Jolla. The ones in La Jolla are really, and the sea lions there are more friendly. Ours aren't so friendly.
Yeah, I would say that's another big change between the seals. Seals are very friendly to me in La Jolla. That's why I have a seal in my team, Marina. Yeah. She's a white seal. For the ones in at least I've heard that the ones in Aquatic Park around there was one that was really mean. Somebody got bitten by it. No, yeah,
not recently, but yeah.
But Suzanne, I have this idea in my head that either when a lion sees me, I'm so big that said if I do something to that guy, I'm digested because there's going to be too much food for them. So I believe they won't attack me.
They won't.
What about the smell or the taste of the water in San Francisco Bay? Is it any different from La Jolla or anywhere down the California coast?
Less salty.
Less salty.
That's a big difference. Less salty. I can feel in my tongue. The 4 days in La Jolla, my tongue was, I was swimming 3 hours every day. My tongue started to hurt, and it just gotten better being just arriving in San Francisco. That's one big difference is the level of salt, and as Sam would probably say, it's because of the water of the delta coming in, the fresh water, so it makes it less salty. And the second thing, it's not as smelly as La Jolla. I mean, when you approach the cove in La Jolla, you have all the birds and the sea lions, and it can the smell really changes. I mean, it's really smelly.
Yeah. What about fog? What about the foggy days? Does that change anything for a swimmer in San Francisco Bay?
I can jump in on that. I mean, I think for me, the fog makes a huge difference. I mean, it's cold, it's damp, it's dark, and it's frequent in San Francisco. And on sunny days, I mean, the perceived temperature of the water is so much higher with a little bit of sun. It's actually remarkable to me. It's surprising how much of a difference that makes. I don't know how much is like psychosomatic versus reality, but it's a huge difference. Do you agree, Suzanne?
That's totally. I think some of it might be psychological, but it is really nice to have that sun hitting your back, and and that's the same. I think even for when you're swimming through the night, Antonio, and then you have dawn. It's like a different swim when dawn comes in, yeah. But I mean, you need to use your common sense and not leave it in the parking lot. I mean, if you can't see to the end of the cove, you don't go outside the cove, because obviously one of the biggest things are fishing boats, as Antonio mentioned, and there's some fishing lines, and more people are using the buoys, and I'm glad to see that. And it's easier for me for me as a swimmer to sight when I can see people out there too. And you actually have a few run-ins, almost close collisions, because sometimes it can get pretty crowded out there, which.
Oh, wow. And then, people are swimming within Aquatic Park, and they swim to and from Alcatraz. What other parts of San Francisco Bay are there pockets of swimmers?
Well, when you swim in from Alcatraz, you usually have a motorized boat with you, because that is a cross-channel swim and you have boating traffic. So like big freighters that don't stop for you. So you have to be really careful about that. So the common courses are when you get to the opening of the cove, you either go to your right or you go to your left. And yes, I do check out, I have a little app that I do check which way the tide is going, because I want to make sure that when I come back, I'm going to have it either in my favor. So I don't have to work too hard. So you work out hard going out, and then you float back. So I do look at that. And then you go to Fort Mason. One of the swims that seems to be quite popular is a bridge to bridge swim, swimming the Golden Gate to the Bay Bridge. And you just get the right tide, and you can ride that flood, and it'd be a lot of fun. I like another swim is doing donuts around Angel Island. It's a lot of fun too. That I personally love that. That's about a 2.5, 3 hour swim. There's one for you, Antonio.
Yeah, and I think with the pandemic and a lot of dolphin and South Enders not having access to the sauna, it's kind of opened up more of the bay, and people have done a little more exploring this past year. And I know China Beach is a place where I like to go swim, and that's really ticked up in popularity. And that's just a beautiful little cove, and it's kind of hidden, and it's a little protected, but you can venture out, and it's just a different vantage point, beautiful views. It's a really special place.
When you swim in all these different points, or even when you swim from Alcatraz, the Aquatic Park, and in between, does the water temperature change I mean, there are pockets of cold water, pockets of warm water.
I don't know if Antonio's found it. I have found it, especially when we're coming into like spring or we're going into fall. That's the time that it changes, because the water hasn't decided which way it was going to go, whether or not it's going to be really warm or whether it's going to be really cold. So all of a sudden, like right now, you're coming into spring, summer. So all of a sudden you'll hit some warm pockets. Back into fall, you'll hit some really cold pockets. So yeah, that's a little mini thermocline.
Got it. And other than seals and fish, what other marine creatures are out there, seen or unseen?
I've had, a few little, I don't know whether they're jellies or nettles, but occasionally they'll get down your suit and kind of hang out there, and I've had a few little welts from them. So some jellies, but occasionally that's about it. I think my biggest concern is fishing boats and fishing lines.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. And especially when you have to swim around one of the piers, or you have fishermen, throwing bait in the water and then they feed the seals. So
yeah, the fishing lines are tricky.
Yeah.
Because they're, you have to. Sometimes you don't see. Well, usually you don't.
Yeah. Are there
far, and it's not far enough, and then.
Yeah.
No, I've never seen nets. Just a fishing line.
Okay. Fish and crab pots, but the fishing line. So you have to make a decision. Are you going to go under the lines, or are you going to go out into swim against the tide and go outside the lines, which can be far. So you have to make a decision which way you want to go. And you'll hit a few. I have a question for Antonio, though. I want to know, when you're swimming with your buoy and it's windy, have you gone out and how does that work with your buoy, like with fishing lines, or have you had that experience yet?
No, I haven't had the experience, but the buoy is pretty much stays straight behind me. It doesn't move to the sides very much. The only time I have problems with my buoy is, for example, in La Jolla, when I go into the water and the waves are really big, that really hits me and brings me back. Or when I'm going out, it can get in front of me, and then when my stroke, I will hit it. So those are the only times I have problems with my buoy.
Your buoy is different. Your buoy is like long and thin. The other ones are like bubble buoys. So
yeah, mine is.
I'm wondering.
Mine is long, and I guess it's just designed to have a better. It just takes. Dan has seen me when I swim in La Jolla and it's really windy. Do you see that?
Say
Go
that
ahead,
again.
Antonio.
Do you see it? Suzanne was asking me if when it's windy, the buoy moves a lot behind me. You've seen me when it's windy in San Diego. Does the buoy move around me, or it just stays always behind me?
I think it is a little bit more streamlined. It certainly still blows around, because it's the buoy. But I do like the thinner one that you use rather than the bubble ones. It may, visibility wise, it may be a little less, but it is, it's still obviously an inflated buoy and it's bright colored. So I think it serves that purpose still. But yeah, I like your buoy better.
And one thing that's really interesting, Suzanne, is that when I drink water, I can put my both arms on top of the buoy and drink. So this buoy was designed, if you get into trouble, you can hold on to it. It's made of the same material that so you can put your hands and your arms, and you can just be there, just hanging on, and it will survive. So it's especially when it's so cold that your hands, are not, you have to move it and screw it. And to me, that helps me a lot. Or to get my goggles again on fog. If we go when I see you tomorrow or whenever I see you, I'll show you, and you can borrow it for a while just to test it, and you'll see
What's
it's a
the
great
brand,
product.
Antonio?
Yeah.
Do you know the brand?
The brand is oh,
It's
I'll tell you in a
rest tube. It's rest tube.
Rest
Yeah.
tube. Yeah.
It's a German. They're a German.
second. Rest tube.
Yeah, rest tube.
Rest tube. Yeah, rest tube.
I was just curious because it's different than the other buoys. And so I was just wondering, because I've had a little tussle with my buoy and when it's windy, and it's yours just kind of is more, like Dan said, streamlined in the water.
Yeah. And then last question, how many people are in the Dolphin Club and Aquatic Club? That's one. Two, how many of those roughly are swimmers? And three, how do you become a member?
So I just know a little bit of the data for the Dolphin Club. We have 1,700 members. I couldn't tell you how many are in the swim program. I would probably say, or how many swim, because there's a swim program and some people don't do the swim program, but I would probably venture to say probably at least 600 swimmers.
Okay.
And both clubs have a website that you go to, and they'll tell you how to join, and they're still doing people join, you know, they're doing Zoom joinings. So you can sign up that way. But you know, Stephen, during I did this little count at one point last year during the pandemic. I counted 80 people swimming in Aquatic Park.
At one time.
At one time. One time.
Wow.
There are 80 people. During the winter time, in fact, I think it was just last week, I counted 37 people, and that was at 8 in the morning on a Sunday morning.
Wow.
And a lot of them are wetsuits,
Yeah.
which is fine. You know, hey, getting off the couch, go do it. So a lot of interest in swimming during this pandemic for sure.
Wow. Excellent. Excellent.
Mhm.
And Tony, how many years have been going to Aquatic Park now?
Probably about 5.
Okay.
5 or 6. That's when I started Ocean 7, I said I had to go and swim in the cold water, and La Jolla wasn't cold enough. You know what's interesting? Now that you mentioned that, I had a thought this morning, and this has to do a lot of how you perceive your environment. Before, I would never have thought that I would swim for 2 hours out of the plane at 12.5 degrees, which is about 55 degrees, never. And because I had a lot of fear about cold water, to be the North Channel conquered that fear. So cold is not a problem to me anymore. I know it's there. I know I'm gonna get cold. My hand at the end, I can't, put them together, but I know that's fine. I mean, I'm not. Nothing is gonna happen, and it's such a feeling of freedom, not having that anxiety or that fear. And this morning I was experiencing that. I just thought, gosh, I mean, I really enjoying it, because Rafa told me go 1 hour and every day you go 15 more minutes. And I said, no, I'm just gonna go 2 hours. No, nothing is gonna happen. So it's beautiful when you experience that. I think I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much. This has been really helpful for those of us who are not privileged enough to live there and enjoy Aquatic Park. Thank you.
Come on up.
Yeah. And Kathy, next time we'll do it when you're not driving, so you can share your experience. And,
Yeah, I'm on for a second.
do you have anything to add? I'm sure you do.
Well, I think everything that's been talked about is excellent. The only thing that I wanted to add was during the pandemic, the Dolphin Club and the South End have been swimming off the bleachers. So we seem like one big happy family now, rather than 2 separate groups. And also I had the same fear as Antonio. I used to only spend 10 minutes in the water in the winter, and now I'm spending an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Kathy. Thank you all. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, next week I'll be earlier, Stephen, because we have the We have two things that day. Remember, it's the Swimming Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
9 a.m. next week, guys.
Yeah.
We'll send a
Okay.
reminder. Good seeing everyone.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Quinn.
Take care.
Thanks, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Good day.